Hello everyone. Today, I will be going to tell you about a movie named Body Collection, is the sequel to the movie Collector. In the previous section, the male protagonist Arkin sneaked into the host's house to steal jewels. Unfortunately, he encountered the killer Collector were frantically slaughtering this place. Arkin had saved his boss's daughter, and jumped on the rescue car just came in time. He was blocked by Collector in the middle of the way. Arkin was locked in a red chest, with unknown whereabouts. The story in this episode would be even more bloody. How would Arkin's fate be? Let's watch it together. Recent cruel murder cases had caused a raging wave in public opinion. Up to now, more than 60 people had been missing. But because the perpetrator attacked with no target, and behavior without a pattern, the police could not trace him. In the end, there was no way to rescue Arkin. Our heroine was Elena. She lost her mother when she was young. On the day her mother died, she and her father had a serious car accident. Although Elena was not injured, but her father was in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. At that time, Elena grew up. On this day, she should have a date with her boyfriend. But as she was about to go out, she received a phone call. Her boyfriend said he suddenly had to overtime. Elena had to let him go. Just hang out on the phone. Her best friend drove to the door and took Elena to dance. Her father fell asleep in the chair. Due to the recent occurrence of murder cases, he did not allow his daughter to go out alone. Elena gently put a blanket over him. Her best friend, somehow, knew an underground party. She must read the secret code to be allowed to come in. There was security outside the door with a scary face. After Elena read the password, his face was expressionless and opened the door for them to enter. The party atmosphere was noisy. The three quickly joined the crowd. Elena did not expect that. She saw a familiar person was kissing a girl warmly on the dance floor. As she patted the person's shoulder, this person immediately turned his head. It turned out to be her boyfriend, Brian. He was caught but still very calm. Elena angrily punched him, then left the dance floor in everyone's cheer. She left her best friend then hid in an empty room. When she calmed down, she noticed that there was a red chest in front of her. Inside the chest there was a sudden sound. Elena carefully unlatched the lock. The blood-filled Arkin directly fell on her. Immediately after that, an iron arrow shot out from the vent, impacted on the ceiling organs of the dance floor. Each row of steel spears moved according to gears. Only Elena's boyfriend discovered the danger on the floor. He pushed the crowd ahead, tried to run. In the blink of an eye, the crowd was stabbed into pieces by the flying barbed wire. The screams overwhelmed the music. The dance floor turned into a fierce spectacle. Only a few people nestled into the corner could avoid it. Collector stood silently on the ceiling, enjoyed the carnage he had arranged by himself. Arkin asked Elena to help him out, but she was scared and fell backward, hastily opened the door, and ran out. Arkin had no choice but to use his old craft. He used the silver bracelet near his hand to open the ring on his leg. Elena had not been able to run far yet. Suddenly she met her boyfriend pushing everyone to run out. But then he hit the organ again. Was cut into two pieces by the flying milling knife. Elena rushed to find her best friend. Right now, she and the others were locked in iron cages. Collector controlled the wire mesh on the ceiling slowly lowered. Elena rushed forward but could not find the organ to open. Just blankly watched her best friend pressed into meaty meat. Collection gazed at Elena with satisfaction. Seeing her turned and ran, he opened the iron door. When Elena ran into the hallway, next to it was only a flickering girl. Arkin was smashing the wooden board by the window. While the two were facing, the Collector chased. He took Elena. Arkin could not save, hugging a corpse, and jumped out the window. The corpse was as a cushion, so he was only slightly injured. The wounded Arkin fled. Finally, he was taken to the hospital. Collector locked Elena in the red chest and drove away. When Arkin was cured by the doctor, the police suddenly burst in, directly handcuffed him to the hospital bed. Arkin fainted because of being exhausted. When he woke up, he saw his wife sitting next to the bed. At that time, there was a card. Collector threatened to say. He aimed at his family members. Arkin then told his wife to quickly return to her mother's home. Arkin did not have time to think about it later. Then there was someone who silently bribed the police to get to his room. He was Lucello, the most trusted subordinate of Elena's father's. About 10 years ago, It was he who saved Elena in the car accident. He did not regret saving the girl. Arkin agreed to help Lucello find the Collector's lair. But he would not go in there anymore. Arkin could definitely find Collector. Because after being locked in the chest, he had carved the root into his arm. Under his guidance, Lucello led the crowd to an abandoned guest house. It seemed that this was the Collector's location. Elena in the red chest saw a man tormented to death. Not knowing how long it passed, she noticed that there was nothing happened in the room. Elena then used the rope to unlock the key. Finally she escaped. The room was full of corpses. She still had not found the door. Outside there was a sound of the opening door. She was scared, then hid inside. Collector entered the room and found she had run out. Because he did not hurry, he whistled, pulled out some hairy spiders and laid them on the ground. The spiders crawled to all sides. Elena was in the corner, could not dare to move. Tried to endure her fear and let the spiders crawl on her face. Arkin and the others outside were also in trouble, because he was the only one alive to escape. Lucello suddenly changed his mind, forced him to go inside with everyone. The opponent had a lot of people. Arkin basically did not have a chance to refuse. A crowd of people sneaked into the room. They did not know they had touched the organ at the door earlier. Collector was teasing Elena. The alarm rang. He had seen the crowd of uninvited guests coming in on surveillance cameras. He went out to welcome the hood. Elena took the chance to find the ventilation hole. She crawled into it and ran away. Collector secretly ambushed the guard at the door. Several moves could knock him out. Arkin and the others were still unaware that they were exposed. They continued going into darkness. Many syringes were on the ground. When they were worried, a shadow suddenly burst out from the darkness. Lived in Arkin like crazy. Other people opened fire to deal with this crazy man. When they turned that person's face over and saw, the eye pupils were exhausted, having been injected with too much anesthetic and lost consciousness. Others discovered that in front of them were all corpses. They had not even clarified the situation yet. They realized there was nowhere to hide. Everyone was locked in a basement 3 meters deep underground. Now that Elena crawled out of the ventilation path, she casually walked into a dressing room. In the middle of the room was a yellow chest. Elena opened the chest. She saw a girl with very heavy makeup. She has tormented to the point her mind was not conscious. She did not leave this room. It was not easy for Elena to advise the girl to leave with her. Two people passing through a hallway. The girl seemed very familiar with this place. She knew very well which room had what kind of organ, and had the illusion that Collector liked her very much. At this moment, Elena's hearing aid suddenly malfunctioned. It made harsh sounds. The girl, seeing the defective Elena, suddenly became horrified. She criticized Elena for not being healthy enough. She shouldn't run out. Just spoke and retreated. Her screams attracted Collector. Elena was afraid. She left the girl and rushed away. Collector followed closely behind with the knife. Everywhere in the house was agency. Elena hid on the water pipe. When Collector found out, she walked away under the ventilation hole, while the group of people was looking for an way. They met a young man who was full of injuries. He cried and said he could not be in the collection of corpses, and begged everyone to save him. As he spoke, his neck emitted a red light. Lucello hastily reminded everyone to lie down. The next second, he was blown up by the bomb inside him. Everyone on the team was pierced by sharp steel bars. In chaos, Arkin took chance when people weren't paying attention. He hid by the edge of the wall. Through the thick iron spikes, he escaped their sight. In a room with gleamy light, Arkin dimly saw a common insect. Collector suddenly appeared behind him. When the light was on for a few seconds, luckily Arkin escaped the ambush. He ran wildly in rooms. Wanted to find a room that he could escape. But he carelessly touched the agency. It almost cut his head off. At this time, Lucello's juniors chase. He immediately hid in a hole. Not careful, falling to a place entirely of people. It took him a long time to crawl back to his original place. In the next repository were Collector's collections. Small and large parts were stored in jars. Looked like a corpse museum. There was a young girl pinned on the wall. She cried for help to Arkin. The two still did not have time to say anything. The Collector suddenly came. Arkin hurriedly hid behind the wall. The girl continued to beg Collector to forgive her. Finally she received a throat cut. Collector did not find the person, then quickly left. Arkin relied on his superior key-breaking skills. Went up to the warehouse upstairs. The room space was very large. All around were pictures of weird people. Lucello's juniors knocked him down. Collector looked at them from the second floor. Arkin in a vague time could not remind everyone. Collector directly used the iron hook to hang that woman. He just threw up on top. The girl was pulled away by the organ. Arkin and Lucello chased. At this time, Elena passed the trap floor. Then also found a window. Outside, 2 people were sitting by a fire. She shouted for help. But they basically could not hear. Arkin and Lucello were locked together. Arkin wanted to leave this place quickly. But Lucello watched Elena grow, persistent, wanted to save her. The 2 of them just finished speaking. The makeup girl came out. She said she did not know where Elena was. But they had to get her out. The 2 men under the girl's guidance walked forward. At the turn, they suddenly heard the call for help from their teammates. Lucello listened carefully, then felt like a trap. His goal was to save Elena, not others. But under Arkin's persistence, the 2 men still followed the incoming sound. This was truly the Collector's trap. Fortunately, Lucello and Arkin saw the bombs in time. Escaped to a safe area at the fastest speed. Coincidentally, Elena also heard a call for help. She sought after that sound. Finally gathered with Lucello. Elena saw the makeup girl, then her face changed expression. Warily told Lucello this person was not trustworthy. Lucello assumed she was scared. He said it was safe now. Elena, emotionally stable, told everyone to follow her. The people on the window that time. Because to ask for help from outside. Arkin borrowed Lucello's weapon. Aimed at one person who was heating up in the 2. The other one quickly called the police. Arkin continued to shoot at the police, intentionally revealed his location. They just needed to hide and waited for the police to come and found them. But they did not expect that. The makeup girl suddenly shouted at the camera at the door. She said many times that Collector liked her best. That led Collector to come. Lucello's juniors punched her down. She shouted and stepped on a trap. She was pierced with holes by the flying organ and locked inside. Some people had not recovered yet. Collector suddenly appeared carrying 2 hunting dogs. Under the onslaught of guns, Lucello had stood in front of Elena. Arkin tackled the hunting dogs with a knife. Unexpectedly, Collector saw that the makeup girl was murdered. Angrily dragged Elena away and locked them here. Lucello fell into an organ and could not move. He told Arkin to save Elena. He stayed alone to face with other organs. Arkin and her teammate found Elena. Collector dropped the iron cage. He burned the oil barrel in the room. And scattered gasoline in the surrounding areas. Because to unlock the iron cage, Arkin smashed plaster. Reached out his hand from the cage to let the female teammate kick his arm. The opponent looked at him hesitantly. At Arkin's urging. Elena stepped on it once. Arkin held back the pain and opened the iron cage door. The female teammate momentarily straightened his hand. The Collector burned gasoline. Arkin led the 2 of them to jump into the cellar full of human limbs. But he was caught by Collector in the corpse room. After dealing with female teammates, he wanted to fight Arkin, but Lucello suddenly appeared. Although his injuries were painful, he still bravely fought Collector. The knife in Collector's hand never stopped slashing at him. Under Lucello's encouragement before dying, Arkin finally got up to fight Collector. He threw Collector into the cellar that contained human limbs. Burned a piece of cloth, then threw it downward. Elena hurriedly banged on the door to call for help. The firefighters outside heard the sound and came. Arkin was stopped in the fire. While he was desperate, Elena held the iron rod and smashed the corpse container. The liquid flowing out extinguished the fire. The 2 went out together as the firefighters opened the door. But Arkin saw Collector's hood in a pile of bones. Then he guessed Collector had escaped. As expected, not long after, a man in a jacket crawled home. The radio suddenly sounded like rock music. He held a knife in defense. Unexpectedly saw a red chest in the kitchen. Arkin suddenly appeared with a gun. He soon found out. Collector was an entomologist. Arkin was not coming to kill people, but he directly locked the opponent into a chest. The movie ends here. After watching, I feel very satisfied, though Lucello did not live to the end. But kind Arkin survived. Eventually found Collector. I heard that Collector's 3 is preparing to shoot. After the release, I will definitely tell you guys about it. This video is over here. See you guys again.